Hey guys, so it's July 6th. So hope you're enjoying your holiday break this week if you managed to get some vacation time off. Good for you. Not everybody gets that. So if you are lounging on the couch somewhere or on a beach somewhere, I say lounging on the couch because someone was lounging on the couch earlier. Hope you're enjoying yourself, but I just wanted to share something that I had started on my vacation. So I conquered team call tonight, and I'll be asking Derek to contribute a few things too, just in terms of focus. So talking about focus, I know it's backwards, but
it's backwards.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I started reading this book while I was on vacation last week. And can you grab that yellow one on the end?
Yep.
This is the sequel to Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit, which I also have in real book form. I think I also have it either on Audible or as a virtual form. Both excellent books about habits. I was really excited when the Smarter, Faster, Better one came out. So there's a chapter in here about focus, and that's what I was going to focus on this evening. So as per my norm, I made a PowerPoint. So here we go. We'll do a little screen share to this. So we'll play from the start. Okay. So finding your focus, the power of mental models. And when we're talking about mental models, we're not talking about like supermodels. We'll talk about that in a second. So it is, again, from advice taken from this text, Smarter, Faster, Better by Charles Duhigg, which I believe is also on our preferred book list for PD. If you haven't read it yet, you should read it or listen to it or in some way absorb. So automation. In case you hadn't noticed, in this particular world of technology that we live in, most things are automated. Most likely, unless you're Derek, you drive a car that has a computer in it. You've got a car that has all of these bells and whistles that are installed to help you navigate the road without a ton of effort. There's automatic brakes. There's steering wheel control. You've got the little controls on your on the steering wheel for like your CD player or your radio or something, so you don't really have to divert that much attention. I should probably be doing this. If you call an 800 number, or even if you call an office, most likely you're not going to call and talk to a person right off the bat. You're going to have to go through an automated system, and they'll patch you through to hopefully the correct department, or you just press 0 and talk to a person anyway. And we all know that our smartphones are there to save our butts or really embarrass us horribly with autocorrect and auto finishing of our sentences. So there's automation that's just around us all over the place. So cognitive automation, or heuristics, allows us kind of to multitask.
There's no such thing as multitasking.
Really, ultimately, I totally agree.
You're just switching back and forth between two tasks.
Kind of off to the side here. So that's why you can, it may not be successful, but you can email your babysitter while you're talking to your spouse and watching the kids out the window in the yard playing all at the same time. So that's your mental automation. So your mental automation lets you choose, usually subconsciously, what to pay attention to and what to ignore.
If I may chime in for just a moment.
Yes, you may.
Regarding our mental ability, think of your mental ability like what you can process all at once. Think of it in terms of numbers. We can process 110 megabits worth of information per second, or in a moment, only 110. It costs you 60 bits per second to have a conversation, a fully engaged conversation with somebody, which is why you can barely partially understand two people at once, because what's 60 plus 60? 120. 120 is not what our capabilities are. 110 is our capabilities. So, I mean, you know, what are you going to focus on? You have to focus on one thing at a time in order to really, you know, give your attention to it.
So on that note, and I don't know why this won't do its thing automatically. Speaking of automation, my PowerPoint won't do it. So Derek actually had a great lead in. So the downside to automation is exactly that. It means that most of us have really poor attention span. The other automated systems around us, or even within our own heads, are paying attention to something for us so that we don't have to do it. So if you think of your brain in terms of focusing a spotlight, our brains dim the spotlight and whip it around wherever we want, enjoying the scenery, because you've got this automated system that's doing the work for you. So it's trickier to bounce between something that's been automatic for you and then focus. So think of it like, and he uses the example from a really horrible situation from an Air France flight that took off quite a few years ago. From having, for these pilots on this plane to have to switch from autopilot to manual control, and they'd had years of training, but because of this sudden shift from automation, they didn't know what to do, and that the whole situation was very poorly handled. So because this glitch, it's called cognitive tunneling, happens, you're forced to switch from an automatic perspective to panicked attention, where your attention is here, but you really can't see the rest of the situation around you. I had a little picture that popped up. So if you're not constantly monitoring your environment, that puts you and others at risk, obviously. But when your brain is letting other people or letting something automated do the work for you, your brain is conserving energy so that it can relax, and that means it can control your stress levels better, and it makes brainstorming and problem solving happen. But then, like it says here, your brain is chilling out, and then there's an emergency. So back to that airline pilot, they have to switch off the autopilot and take care of a whole bunch of alarms that are going off all at once, and their brains have to completely shift focus immediately. I mean, they could be feet from the ground and they don't know, but it's an alarming situation that they haven't been able to focus in on and really devote the time and effort. It's a really hard thing to bounce back and forth between an automated world and one of focus control. And there's my little spotlight. So on cognitive tunneling, and I've got that little image up there, it happens when we literally have tunnel vision on whatever is directly in front of us. So it keeps us focused or preoccupied on what's right here. Just like when our eyes are glued to our smartphones, despite your kids crying in the next room or outside on the playground or wherever, drivers are slamming on the brakes when they see a last minute red light. And basically, once you're in this tunnel, you lose the ability to direct your focus. So common sense can also very easily go out the window for whatever is the safest and most obvious solution that's right here. And I had this great little vision with a little tunnel vision. I don't know if you've seen those things. Those were fun. I used those as a kid. So to combat cognitive tunneling, you've got reactive thinking. So this is something that we could practice instead. This way you can fall back on an action or a response that is already known to you and may have worked in the past. It's familiar. And hopefully it's worked in another situation. And for some degree, it feels safe. So an example of this, I don't know if that really comes out well.
It's only because of where your picture is.
Yeah, no, I know. But if you're watching this video and you're taking a good look at that picture, that is a really big shark.
Jaws is right over these two scuba divers behind them.
Woo! So you actually may not want to try to swim away as quickly as humanly possible. That actually might be a bad thing. So, for an example, athletes practicing moves repeatedly so that during a game, they just have a reaction. They don't have to think about it. They just react a certain way and then hopefully move faster than their opponent. And this was something I was going to bring up to Derek as a martial artist and someone who practices moves continuously. I've heard you use the phrase muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
So that that comes into play because you've been practicing this over and over, hopefully correctly.
Right. And correctly, I might add, is something that it's a very thought-based process. It's a very focused process. You have to know what your goal is ahead of time, because your goal often will dictate how to move.
Right.
Just like, your goal in life determines what your choices and situations are, what your choices given certain situations are going to be. And it's a practice series of movements that we do in a very safe space, so that when shit hits the fan and it's time to react,
yep,
you react with this pre-planned, this pre-thought out, this premeditated thought process and action process, because you've practiced the actions.
Yep.
You've exhibited the discipline that is required and the focus that is required in order to be as successful as you possibly can be at this task. And that's really the difference between somebody who knows how to defend themselves and somebody who doesn't. Somebody who doesn't is going to do something because they're going to react to the stimulus that's in front of them the best that they can. But if they've never practiced a better way, they're just going to react to whatever instantly comes to mind. But there's always a better way to do something. You just need to put forth the effort and focus in order to figure it out.
So the key with this reactive thinking is to build new habits. And like Derek said, rather than the need to decide what to do next, you're going to use your reactive instincts and proceed automatically. Oh, this is what happened? Good. I've been practicing this. I'm just going to go in that direction. And that reactive thinking can outsource choice and control, and that creates motivation, which is another really key thing. Downside to reactive thinking. These actions, at times, can become automatic. And while it may not be a horribly bad thing, with what Derek was talking about in terms of martial arts, I know that I've heard him talk about over the last couple of years that he has had to go back and correct students who have done the moves in whatever form, but they've been doing it incorrectly. They have the automaticity of the move, but it's been done incorrectly.
I've had to do it to myself too.
So that's something that you have to recognize, and that's for later in this discussion. That means reaching out to other people for a secondary opinion, feedback, that kind of thing. So another thing with reactive thinking is that it can overpower your own judgment in the moment. There may be a situation where you really need to make a judgment call rather than a reactive thinking call with something that you've practiced. You have to do a judgment call. Some things just happen like that. So once the motivation is outsourced, we just react. So like drivers utilizing cruise control and automatic brakes, it gives them the permission to pay less attention to the road conditions around them. So they think.
So can I just talk about something real quick?
Mm-hmm.
The word react, what does the prefix re mean? It means to do something,
again.
And what's the base word? Act. You're doing an action again. That's all it is. You have to have done this action at some point in time in your life before in order to be able to pull it off now in the moment that you're reacting to. So the ultimate goal, in my opinion, of a reaction is something that is thought out, something that you did put a lot of thought and judgment into, so you don't have to go through that really intensive process of making smart judgments and thinking. Like, thinking is, you ever wonder why you can't exercise really well and think at the same time? It's because thinking slows you down.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah.
So if you premeditate, if you plan out actions ahead of time, and then you do those new actions again and again and again, you're going to create this new habit. And hopefully you've thought about that in beforehand, so that you're getting the results you want when you react.
So like this quote from the books at the bottom says, instead of thinking, you react. And if it's not the correct response, bad things happen. So I've got my little thinking guy up there. All right. So ultimately, why is this all important? Why am I talking about it? Because you can learn to manage your attention. And that's something that has come up for me personally, as a coach, just as a working person, as someone who takes care of the house, as a soon-to-be mommy. How do I manage my attention? So one way of doing this that the author talks about in the book is creating mental models. And we all do this in our daily lives to some extent. You tell yourself a story, and that could be you envision a conversation. I envision a conversation that I want to have with Derek that is really important to me, and I need to.
Do we need clown noses?
No, we don't need clown noses. That's a whole other video.
Okay.
But I envision a conversation that he and I are going to have, and also try to envision his responses so that I can be prepared with my responses, and then we can just keep ping-ponging back and forth so I can take the emotion out of it so we can have a more constructive conversation. Walking yourself through what your schedule is going to be for the day, and really where you need to be at what times, how you're going to get there, anticipating traffic, this kind of stuff. Tell yourself a story. So this is how you're going to relate to the world around you, even though this is sort of your imagination. It's an imaginary world. This is going to help you navigate when reality really smacks you across the face. So like this says, the story allows for choosing what to focus on and what to ignore. So while we daydream about the future and life comes at us, your attention is going to sharpen. And if we are constantly telling ourselves stories, where's my flashlights, then the beam of light will never fully power down and give you tunnel vision. So an example of this, again, going back to the book, was a nurse in a neonatal intensive care unit constantly envisioning what healthy babies ought to look like, so that when she's going around and she's looking at the different bassinets, that one doesn't look quite right. Her blood pressure was fine. She was breathing fine. Like all of these other things from all of the machines all say she's doing well, but something doesn't look right. She's got a bloody Band-Aid on her foot from where they were drawing blood, or you notice these things, and it didn't fit her mental model. So it sharpens her focus. She brings it to the attention of the doctor. There ended up being a larger issue.
Cyanotic blue lips was a much simpler, more realistic example. Or really poor capillary refill is another really good example.
Derek would know this. I would
Sorry.
not. Anyway, there are my flashlights. The one on the left, that's your cognitive tunneling. That's when you're focused like right here and you're not really seeing the rest of the world around you. We want a bit more of reactive thinking. We want the lens a little bit widened so that you can...
Just in this example, it looks a little confusing.
Oh.
When I look at that, I think of the broader unfocused flashlight much more as much more of a broadened awareness.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
A much wider awareness, because the other flashlight can shine light on much more things than the focus flashlight. The focus flashlight will put a lot more energy and brightness on one particular thing, but you lose all the things that exist around it. Whereas when you change the angle of the focusing cup, you get a much broader spread of light, and thus you get to see a whole lot more at once.
Okay. So you would switch the cognitive tunneling flashlight and reactive thinking?
No, I wouldn't switch them. The cognitive tunneling one is correct, but you have to remember that when we talk about reactive thinking in this sense with that picture that you've displayed, that picture really also demonstrates broadened a broader sense of awareness. And so, that's a really that requires a lot of focus as well in order to stay broadly attentive to things.
Good point.
So in order to be able to react to them, so you have this broad level of awareness so that you can react to the different stimuli that comes your way, as opposed to being very narrowly focused on one thing.
Gotcha.
It takes a lot of energy to do that well.
That is true. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Continuing with mental models, what this looks like. So at work, imagine and be specific. When you get to work, what will you see? What does your desk look like? And when you get there, notice how reality differs from your mental model. And then in order for you to be successful during your workday, you need to make whatever changes are necessary to that functional reality. Do you have to clear off your desk? Do you have to organize the clutter? Do you have to throw out the old coffee cup? Like, what is it you have to do?
But I like that coffee cup.
So then don't throw out the coffee cup. Clean the coffee cup. It's a whole other conversation. At home, listen to your kids. So this does mean putting the phone away. So tell yourself the stories that they had said at the dinner table or during bath time, and you create a mental model. You create that mental picture of how you might engage differently in another conversation at dinner time or at bath time, or if a really good discussion had come up that you want to continue that conversation later, you can have that mental picture going. Oh, happy family at dinner. And then,
like that, really?
Yeah, really. And then narrate your own life. And I was trying to remember the name of that movie that had Will Ferrell in it. And I couldn't remember the name of it. I probably should have Googled it. But the movie that came out, it's been like 10 or 15 years, where Will Ferrell is walking around, but his life is being narrated by this author constantly. Basically thinking of it in that light. Visualize your life as you live it in as much detail as possible with what you're about to do. So you get out of bed in the morning. Okay, what does my day look like? Like I'm gonna put on my bathrobe. I'm gonna go into the bathroom. I'm gonna brush my teeth. I'm gonna go downstairs, and I'm gonna da 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 da, so that you're lining up the reality. And if you can't find Morgan Freeman to narrate your life, then I highly suggest Sean Bean from The Lord of the Rings. So, because he's got another one of those really great voices. So just had to throw that out there.
Oh, does he now?
He does. He's got a great voice. Okay. So what you can do, what you should do, in my humble opinion, but really it's the author's opinion. Avoid checking your email a million times a day. And the same goes for like texts and phone calls. Now, understandably, we all have professional lives, and we as coaches definitely do too, and we have to get back to people. The key is to not be checking your email, text, or phone calls when you are around another person or a group of people, and this includes your kids, so that you can give that person or this group of people your attention. Very important.
Pay attention to me.
Yes, hi. Except I have to pay attention to this. For you ladies and some of you few gentlemen maybe out there, avoid doing your makeup while you're driving. It's a horrible idea. Also, do not watch your favorite TV shows and pay your bills at the same time, because you're going to be mismatching amounts. I paid my credit card bill twice a couple months ago and got overdrawn on my bank account, and it was because I was totally engrossed in whatever TV program I was watching.
Remember, you can only process 110 bits of information per second, and most tasks you do require 60 to 70 bits.
Yeah. So instead, if it wants to work, so instead, let's play.
Oh, it stopped.
I don't know why it won't work. Instead,
Just read it from
I'll
there.
just read it from here. You want to narrate life as it's happening. Kind of like the whole Will Ferrell or Sean Bean thing from the previous slide. So while you're driving to work, envision what your day is going to look like. If you're in a meeting.
Stranger Than Fiction.
Okay, that sounds right.
Sorry.
In a meeting, describe to yourself what you're seeing, what it means, so that you're really paying attention to the substance of the meeting and you can contribute to it. Seek out others to hear your ideas, but also challenge them so that you can engage in meaningful conversation. We all have to realize that we're not always going to be right. And once you get past that really uncomfortable moment when you're like, oh, you have this great moment of growth and clarity. It's a fabulous thing. Do the best that you can to anticipate what's coming next, but be prepared if it doesn't happen. Don't get disappointed. Don't get scared. Like, plan for it, and then you have to roll with it. And if you're a parent, imagine what's going to be said next at the dinner table or like in the bathtub. So let's see if I can go back to this. So as a coach, this means don't take on too many projects. And I know for me, this would be me trying to run a whole bunch of challenge groups that I just don't have the time to devote to this one and this one and this one and this one. It's too many. So you have to figure out what your too many amount is and go less than that.
Bits per second.
Bits per second. As mentioned in the previous slide, seek out new colleagues to support you and bring fresh abilities and opinions. We have some amazing Coach Network Facebook pages. There's the Connecticut Beachbody coaches page. There's the larger one. I'm blanking on the name at the moment. There's our own team page. There's the Eternal Fit page. There's Wild Impact. There's the other team pages, as well as Diamond Dash groups. Like, so many resources are out there. And when there's something that you don't have or that you're lacking, put it out there and someone will have that talent to complement you. You want to always be getting feedback. Join in new projects, like new challenge group ideas. I know that I've posted a number of times. I don't know what to do for my next free challenge group. Do I do a 7-day water challenge group? Do I do a martial arts challenge group? And I have no experience with that, so Derek would run it. You know, I seek out the people that have the information and the knowledge that I don't have. So do that. And make sure that you are learning from others and their experiences and not just using them.
Or if you're not specifically going to use their ideas, like, at least consider what it is that they have to say. Don't just be dismissive or brush things off if you initially go, oh, I don't like that idea, such and such said. That's a stupid idea. No, get rid of those thoughts and opinions and step back and really evaluate it. You know, really consider it with honesty, because most of the time somebody who you're asking for help from, you know, people are going to help you, and they're going to help you likely because you asked, because they like you. And they want to help.
You also have to work on pushing through the frustration of this new stuff. And I know for me, and I mean, disclaimer, because I'm pregnant and hormones are a little crazy right now and I'm a little extra emotional about really ridiculous things. Derek knows, he's a black belt in Tung Sudo Karate. He knows a lot of things that I have no idea how to do. And we were practicing some steps yesterday in the garage. I got very frustrated very easily trying to go from working on the right side of my body to working on the left side of my body. I had to move through that frustration. And Derek had to help in his own unique way, walk me through getting to that point where I could come back and regather myself and refocus. And then he approached the lesson in a completely different way. The communication was there. It might be a little biased because we're married and, you know, we have that relationship, but
you also had a willingness to learn.
Vigorous co-signing on that one. So learn from others and their experiences. Share lots of ideas. our team page is a really great place to throw out all kinds of ridiculously crazy things or the totally rational things. And we all know who on the team has the rational stuff and who has the crazy stuff. But share.
Pointing fingers?
No.
You shouldn't be pointing fingers. People get blinded when you point fingers.
Be obsessive and be positive. So you want to throw out stuff into the world that has a lot of energy, has a lot of exuberance, focus.
Totally. I will tell you, when teaching karate classes, if I teach class totally monotone and I'm like, okay, everybody,
Low
next
lock.
move, center punch, next move, friend kick. All right, let's go do it now. Yeah, just like that. I'm actually feeling the yawn come on myself, to be perfectly honest. If you yawn too, go for it.
Not
But
good.
like, be lively, be energetic, be happy. All right, everybody. Haramaki, Taro Jindan Kunkyak, Kia! All right, you do a little bit more fun. You even get people to laugh. Maybe I got one of you people to roll your eyes as well. Or maybe kick a little bit. But like, be energetic. You get out of people half of what you put in. So if I only put in 50% energy, I'm going to get 25% energy out of my class. And if I put in 100% of my energy, I'm going to get 50% back out of my class. And hopefully you manage to spark something with one person, and that person gets the energy too. And now all of a sudden they're picking it up and they're being as energetic as you. And then that once the spark passes from one person to the next, it easily engulfs the entire class. So that's your goal, is to find out how to ignite one person so that their energy goes and sets everybody else ablaze.
Well put. All right. So in conclusion, and this again from our glorious author of the book that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, computers fail. Automaticity fails. Checklists fail. Anything can fail. Life happens. People do fail, but we can't. We have to make decisions that are better for ourselves and for the people around us. So you have to make the decision, what deserves your undivided attention? And then you have to force yourself to think about it, how you are going to interact with it, and then go.
I think the important thing about the word decision is, if you look at its Latin origins, its etymology, if you will, it originally meant to cleave yourself from. To cleave, like literally, if I've got one choice and the other choice, and I make this choice gets cut right off. And it doesn't exist anymore. I only have this choice. And this is the choice that I make and I devote myself to and I focus myself on. And this is the choice that ultimately allows me to grow in this path. This path is gone. Forget about it. Here. It's like marriage. Before I asked Rebecca to marry me, I had a choice of her, or I had a choice of all the other women in the world. Well, I did this. And I was left with this, which is why she's got that. So, and now I get her.
Yeah. So. Oh, and plus one. Plus one. Okay. So anyway.
In any case, the reason why I mentioned that is because when you make a decision, when you cleave yourself from the alternative, all your other choices are made for you. It then becomes simple. When I get into a frustrated position with my wife, like, I don't think about divorce, because divorce isn't an option. I took it off the table a long time ago. I cleaved myself from that option. And so now that I know whatever the frustrating thing is, I have to work through it with her. And, one of the best things that I've ever learned about frustration is the fact that those are your moments. Those are your frustration highlights your opportunities for your own personal greatest growth. When you can focus through and fight through and get through the opposite side of frustration, you leveled up. You're,
for you gamers out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you gain skills. You gain skills by facing your frustrations. You don't gain skills by not doing anything that's outside of your comfort zone. The only way we grow is by making ourselves uncomfortable. Change is in and of itself not comfortable.
So
she's changing. She's not comfortable right now.
But anyway, so ultimately you've got the authority to choose your actions and your surroundings, even though that you may feel in many instances you don't have a choice. Your actions don't matter. Like, yes, they do. So cleave yourself, to use your vocabulary word, from some automaticity in your life and create some new mental models so that you can interact with your world differently, make some different decisions, and propel yourself in a more positive direction. So I'm going to end this part, and I'm just going to shout out one more time this fabulous book by Charles Duhigg, Smarter, Faster, Better, which is the sequel to The Power of Habit. So highly recommended. It's on our suggested book list. So you should read them or listen to them, or in other ways get them into your brain, because they're awesome.
Full disclosure, I have no idea who Charles Duhigg is, and we're not getting any advertising money from him. So
nope. Just thoroughly enjoyed reading his stuff so far, and he makes it really easy to read. So thus concludes our call for this evening. I hope everybody watches this and gives us some great feedback. And if you've got questions, you can post them in the comments. And that's it. We will see you guys on the call next week.
Hasta la vista.
Toodles.